burning withered fumes far below these symphonies.
Dave Darren here. A couple days ago, I was going to do a show about Charlie Kirk. I got so frustrated, so angry, so irritated, so frustrated in what was going on based upon a needless killing, and then based upon seeing some people's reactions to the killing. And it really threw me off of my game. I wanted to come on. I couldn't be angry. I wanted to say happy birthday to someone whose birthday it was on the same day, and I couldn't do that. And it kind of threw off all my typical humor and fun, so I didn't do the show. In fact, I almost postponed doing a radio show at all. But here I am today, and here I am to tell you that I am going to come back and doing a show sometime the end of October, early November, who knows, before Christmas sometimes, because I got some traveling to do. So I'll be back on the air at that point. But today, Charlie Kirk. You know, I got to say this, and I did write down some notes so I can stay somewhat organized. Charlie Kirk, and we all know him as a great speaker, a great debater. Now, his debating skills, it's almost like Crocodile Dundee. Remember that movie, Crocodile Dundee? I think it was Crocodile Dundee 2, where he's getting robbed by a guy with a little switchblade. And then Crocodile Dundee says, that's not a knife, this is a knife. He pulls out like a big thing that he's going to kill alligators with. It's almost like that, because he came obviously equipped to debate anyone that would have an opposite opinion of his. So whether you consider that fair or not, he was prepared to do everything that he wanted to do on his presentation, his debating, his public's debating. He was excellent at it. He diffused a lot of people. I don't know if he convinced anyone to be considerate of his point of view. I don't think anyone convinced him to change his point of view or his mind, but he was a great debater. He was also a great political commentator. Now, if you agree to his politics or not, that's what got him killed. A lot of things got him killed, and I'll talk about them as I go on today. I'm going to only stay on for about 30 minutes. One of the things that he was really focused upon, and what is really becoming a point of discussion at these points, is freedom of speech. Now, you know, freedom of speech has been kind of lopsided for quite a few years. It's been media, social media, and it really has leaned, whether you want to admit it or not, on a liberal perspective. Very much so, very much liberal. There's an overwhelming amount of late night talk show hosts, people on radio. People don't listen to radio much, but they do listen to AM radio, because that's where a lot of politics comes from, is AM radio. Not FM, but AM is still predominant from that perspective and that point of view. It's been heavily slanted liberal. Whether you agree with that or not, you can debate me on that, but I believe it's been heavily liberal, heavily Democrat, and that becomes frustrating, because your freedom of speech is kind of 65 to 70% of freedom of speech on one particular point of view, based upon the minimum point of view, which is still freedom of speech, but is limited in its exposure. Really difficult and frustrating to a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans who want freedom of speech to either be balanced, and now they kind of don't want it to be balanced anymore. We want freedom of speech now, and a lot of people are thinking this is leaning towards the right now, as opposed from where it used to be heavily left. Pendulum constantly swings back and forth before it ever settles down. And in today's day and age, I don't think it's ever going to settle down. It's just going to keep swinging back and forth with constant momentum and no stability, which is really unfortunate. But the thing is that freedom of speech is something that Charlie Kirk was heavily focused upon. It was one of the most important things in his life, versus, of course, he was very religiously motivated. But I don't talk about religion because I'm not really religiously motivated, and you can debate me on that if you want to, which a lot of people have, by the way. But getting back to his freedom of speech, it is interesting right now, the freedom of speech. A lot of people are thinking that these late night shows are getting canceled to block freedom of speech, unless it is now more conservatively directed versus where it was before, liberally directed. Now that things are in Trump's boat, now everyone thinks that, okay, he's the one dictating, not as a dictator, but dictating, because a lot of you people are considering him as a dictator or Hitler. But a lot of people are thinking that it's now dictated towards the conservative momentum, and that people who are opposed to that conservative point of view need to be canceled. You know what cancels programs like this, like what's been canceled recently, Jimmy Kimmel and the other guy, I forget his name, Stephen Colbert. This is what gets them canceled. You come up, you're supposed to be an entertainer, supposed to be entertaining the public. We had Johnny Carson, we had David Letterman. Heavily entertaining. I thought they were both great. They did political commentary, they kind of balanced it out. And it wasn't any angry political commentary. It was more like a lighthearted fun to pick apart some of the quirks about each candidate or each party or anyone involved in politics. But it was lighthearted and fun. And no one had any problem with that. Today, everyone not everyone, a lot of late night hosts, a lot of political commentary people on media, and notice I didn't say news people, I said commentators. They're commenting about what their thoughts are rather than giving you the news for you to judge what you think is authentic and what you think is part of your character and your belief and your acknowledging of what you like to hear. But now these people are being supposedly canceled. What cancels them is this. It's you, me, and the next you, the next me, the next you, the next me, who listen to these folks and decide that you don't like what they're talking about. You would probably prefer that they just shut their mouths, like the guy that did the Golden Globes. I forget his name, Rick Gervaisi or Rick Gervais, whatever his name is. He said that the people going up to accept awards, you know nothing about the world. Come up, accept your award, and I think he said, get the fuck off the stage and cut the word out. That's what he said. It was an interesting commentary from someone who I happen to like. But this is what it is. Entertainers now are coming out too much with the politics rather than entertaining us. They could come out with politics like Carson did and Letterman did, but they don't flavor it with a funny, balanced approach. They focus on one point of view, their point of view. Not even necessarily the media that they're on's point of view. What happens though is when you come out just like Howard Stern did, a lot of people think that's how he lost a good percentage of his audience, which is true. There are other reasons, but that's one major factor in his life and a lot of people on media's life, a lot of people on television and radio. They become too divisive, too focused on one point of view, whether it's the liberal side or the conservative side, alienating half of the population or more than half the population, depending on where the pendulum is at the moment. So what happens is these people get on talking about things, talking about the death, talking about the comical approach to someone's death that should not be comically approached. It's inappropriate at the moment to do that. Yes, it's too soon. And they get on there and they make their political contribution, which gets an angry response from the people that don't like that response. So what happens is those people then start calling up the radio station and calling up the sponsors or boycotting the sponsors of who's sponsoring that show, who's paying the dime for that host to be on for that slice of time on TV or radio. They complain about it. They boycott or say that they're going to boycott, and the station and the sponsors start to get worried about that. And as a result of that, rather than taking the risk or the potential risk, they pull their sponsorship of that program. They don't want their commercial to be on that program when they may agree with it, but they know some or half of their people that buy their products are opposed to that point of view. Therefore, what they do is they take their risk out, they pull their sponsorship, and then the radio station or TV station has to decide, okay, is it worth it? What we're getting for Jimmy Kimmel being on the air? Do we get enough money for his program, for the sponsors of his program? Do we get enough money of that versus how many sponsors we're losing now? So that's what pulls the plug. I don't believe this is a Trump initiative to cancel these programs. I don't believe it's a governmental pursuit to end these programs. I think it's a bottom line dollar thing right now. It's driven by the economy. And that's exactly what it is. What contributes to that? Me, you, the me, you, the me, you. It trickles down the line and it creates a fear. We've seen this in the cancel culture with a bunch of products that are being sold where they change the label on things because they don't want to offend. Therefore, the sponsors don't want to offend the people listening to Jimmy Kimmel because he's come out with a divisive point of view. That's what cancels shows like this. I can't believe that people don't see this. And the other thing I was going to say, remember I mentioned freedom of speech. If Kirk survived, and if people were saying they were glad that the attempt was made to take him out, I don't think his response would be, look, cancel these people. I think his response would be, unfortunately, these people think this way. Unfortunately, I think it would have been great if I was taken out. I don't like what they said, however, they have the freedom to express it. I think that's honestly what he would say. I think if you could bring him back as a spirit and ask him that, I think he would say, look, I don't like it. Of course I don't like it. My family doesn't like it. My children don't like it. The people that supported me don't like it. But what I like is freedom of speech. I think that's exactly what he would say. He wouldn't want anything canceled. However, like I said, I don't believe it is one source of cancelization. I think it's a bunch of domino effects that have canceled these programs. You can't contribute it to a government point of view, a Trump point of view, a primarily solely conservative point of view. I think some liberals out there, I think a lot of liberals out there are pretty bummed out that Charlie Kirk has been killed. I think that's more understood across both parties. And I think that the people that see these programs with their true liberal guy that they liked on the air are pretty frustrated that someone would say that. And I don't know if they would boycott the product that's sponsored on that show, on the Jimmy Kimmel show, and say, I'm not going to buy that product because Jimmy Kimmel said this. I don't know if that would happen, but I think they're equally frustrated, or at least they're frustrated but don't admit that they're frustrated. So that's what I believe it's true. I believe that freedom of speech should still be freedom of speech, whether you agree with me, whether you agree with the next guy next to me who is totally different than me. I think freedom of speech is still important. Now, do I think it's appropriate that someone is laughing and making jokes about someone that was wrongfully killed, disgustingly killed? Do I think they should be doing that? Absolutely not. It's inappropriate. Do I think we cancel them for doing that? I think the cancellation decision is on the people watching that program. They make their point of view. They make their voices known. It's almost like a voting system. They make their decisions on their own. They cast their vote, and then someone like Kimmel gets canceled. That's what happens, and we know it. By the way, I'm wearing this hat today, if you can see it. It's called Bridging the Gap, which is actually a movie production that was filmed about a month ago. I was part of it. Bridging the Gap is as it sounds. Bridging the gap between liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. Is there any common ground? Is there any bridge that can be built? Is there any bridge that can be built and stay without being destroyed? I was part of it. Now, as you guys know, and see when I come back on the radio again in about a month, probably should say none of this, but a lot of you guys do know that I'm conservative. By the way, what does the word conserve mean? It means, for instance, if you have a certain amount of budget, what do? You conserve the money that you have so you can survive month to month to month. That's what the word conserve means. You go out and you go to the gym like I do. You try to conserve your energy, although I push it to the limits where I've broken through conserving my energy. But you try to conserve when you're running a marathon. You try to conserve so at the end you've got some sprinting capability to then become the winner or get a gold, silver, bronze medal out of it, right? You try to conserve. That's what conservative means, conserve. So for instance now, let's talk about this freedom of speech, or an attempt to break a freedom of speech by Tesla, Elon Musk, Elon, E-L-O-N. I better say it right to begin with, otherwise I'm going to seem like an idiot. They tried to cancel him, right? Tried to boycott his cars, tried to destroy his cars. Who were they really destroying? They were destroying the people that bought the cars. They were actually keying some people's cars, destroying their cars. And if you boycotted Tesla, you were actually boycotting an ability for a company to create better and better products as the generations of products came out. Now, I don't own a Tesla. I don't happen to like a Tesla, but that's what they were trying to cancel him. Cancel Elon Musk. Cancel X. They didn't like that. They didn't like that he was a specific partner with Trump, and they wanted him out of there. They tried to damage Tesla and cancel Tesla to cancel Musk, to weaken him so that they could make their point of view an overwhelming point of view to cancel out Elon Musk's point of view. Talk about conservative. Elon was out there. How come I keep saying Elon? Elon was out there understanding, figuring out what the government was doing with our money. By the way, it was our money he was trying to figure out. Some jobs, we can use the word, some jobs were canceled. People were fired from those jobs because according to Elon and other studies, those people were not contributors to keeping that government entity viable, solvent, responsible, so they were let go. And then suddenly they appear and say, I was let go, I'm important. How do we really know that? Just because you say you were important to that part of government, how do we know that to be true? Actually, in the private sector, which I was part of before I retired, we had something called the Lean Initiative. Lean is exactly that. They go to these corporations, these private companies, and they streamline the workforce so that they get productivity from those people that can give them a better bottom line. So that was the Lean Initiative. Now there is a problem that corporations sometimes are run too lean, where the people that are working there then have an extreme extra workload placed upon them, and they're not being paid more. There's actually a cartoon out there that some company does, which actually does an animated thing about corporate America and how unfair it can be. Very true. Some companies are run too lean. Perhaps some government entities that Elon Musk minimized the amount of workforce there, it is potentially possible that they are running too lean. But just because you say when you lost your job there that now they're running too lean, we don't know that. We're not sure about that yet. You go out there on social media, especially the liberal-leaning ones, saying that your job was eliminated, your most important participation in that job was eliminated. Now the effectiveness of that part of government now is jeopardized, damaged. It can't support the workload that it needs to support. You say it, we hear it, the liberal media hears it, the liberal media reports it, and then we're supposed to believe it, and we're supposed to say, okay, so this is all Elon Musk's fault. Let's boycott Tesla. Let's destroy the Teslas that are out there. Let's destroy the charging stations because we think we're damaging Elon Musk. Well, we're really damaging the owners because they can't get products that are improving year after year after year with the new modifications to the software, the hardware, a better product, but now they're damaged, so they can't produce that better product for the people that love their product. Which again, like I said, I don't like Teslas, but I did have something. Oh yeah, some people are coming after Trump with the lawsuits. Now, you know what? I got to say that Trump does put out too many friggin' lawsuits out there. And a lot of them are easy wins. Plus, when you create a lawsuit, the company that you're suing will evaluate how much it's going to cost to eliminate you being in the news media. To eliminate the damage that you're going to have to defend yourself is a cost to defend yourself. Trump knows that game. He's been in corporate America long enough to know, okay, I sue these people. What are they going to do? Are they going to fight me in this lawsuit, waste a lot of money, or are they just going to pay off and settle? That's what a lot of this is all about, the settlement, to eliminate the damage or the perspective of damage or the monies that are going to be put in the defense. That's what these lawsuits are. There's too many of them. I believe that there really are too many. So Trump going after the ABC, Trump going after this. It is too much with the lawsuits. It really is too much. But United States, we have gotten overwhelming with the litigation. A long time ago, remember, it used to be the phone book. Back cover always had a lawyer on it. You open up the back cover and there's a lawyer on the other page. As soon as you open up the back cover, there's a picture of another lawyer. Today, you go out there on any bus stop, any bus, and you have Call Raffy Raffy. That's a big Arizona one. Call Raffy Raffy. There's a jingle. Call Raffy Raffy. And you remember the jingle. Deliberately, you remember the jingle because it was made so that you remember that jingle. Every bus stop, every bus has a lawyer on it. It's amazing. It is amazing. There's too many lawyers out there because there are too many people like you or me who see an opportunity to do what Trump's doing, to create a lawsuit in hopes that the person that you are suing decides, okay, it's worth a few $1,000s. In Trump's case, it's millions. But for the general purpose of this conversation, an individual person has a lawsuit against a smaller company, and a smaller company thinks, okay, let's try to pay him $5,000 to get him off our back so that we can forget about the hassles of this lawsuit. That's what a lot of people do. They hire lawyers based upon the Call Raffy Raffy. And they use these lawyers, and the lawyers are well aware that they can go out, produce a lawsuit in hopes to get a settlement before it goes to court. It is a brutal way of doing business in the United States. It is actually a way of now doing business in the United States. It's a business from the perspectives of the lawyers. It's a business of the perspective of you and I to take money from these corporations that we may not be entitled to, but we just know that the fear factor out there of corporations to pay off, to get us off of their backs, get them out of the spotlight, get them out of paying money for the defense, they pay us off. And that's the game now, pay us off. It has gotten out of hand. It really has gotten out of hand. A lot of stuff has gotten out of hand here. Did I have anything else I wrote down here? Let me grab a drink of water. Water. I think that's pretty much all I had to say, and I think I said it quite well. To get back to this Bridging the Gap, it's a movie. I don't know where it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be in theaters near you. I don't know if it's going to be online. I don't know if it's going to be on YouTube. I don't know if it's going to be on Spot. I don't know where it's going to be. But at the time I made this, I was one of probably about 15, 20 people giving their point of view, whether it be a liberal, conservative, or there might have been some people dead center in the middle. I don't know. But at the time, I was thinking, okay, yes, I'm very conservative, and it's getting harder and harder now to be forgiving of the opposite group, whether you're on the one side or the other. It's harder now to not let that bridge collapse in a hurricane of hatred. It's really becoming tough. So at the time when I made this portion of the video for those folks where I was sitting with David and Susan, Susan was more conservative, David was more liberal. It was a pretty interesting debate between the two of us, and especially between David and I, David versus David. And I at that point, I was thinking, you know what, we should try to probably mend things a bit. Wouldn't it be better to start, you know, one person's killed, what are we going to do now? Try to kill someone else and revenge of that? And it spirals and escalates, which it seems to be at the moment. It seems to be escalating where we're killing people's careers and we're actually killing people. It's kind of brutal. Do we want this to continue? I don't want it to continue. I don't want it to continue so much that I've said it before, as soon as our dog dies, I'm moving out to Japan because I find them less independent. Let's say that, you know, the United States has become almost too independent, where you think that your independence is overwhelmingly more important than someone else's independence, and they think the same thing of you, and it's total conflict, irreparable damage. And that's what it's become. It's become almost the United States has become too independent. We celebrate Independence Day. We're celebrating Independence Day to make people more independent and less tolerant. It's becoming more and more brutal. So I did this thing at the time when things were not as aggressive as they are now. It's really becoming brutal. That's why I thought I'd come on the air to talk about what I think about freedom of speech. I still think freedom of speech is very important. I don't think freedom of speech is being stopped because of Trump or the government. I think it's you and I making the decisions on what we stop or attempt to stop based upon our votes about things. I've got a couple of people here. Miller says he's watching the show. Miller is kind of interesting because he's getting me back into the groove of doing shows again. James Graves is here. These communist pigs are out of control. All right, now, it's interesting because a perspective of that from a conservative like me is actually pretty accurate because I'm pretty angry at the moment. These conservative pigs are out of control. There is like I said, a lot of years have been focused on making the liberal agenda taught in our schools. And I've actually said that it's responsibility of the older generation that has neglected their children for them to be liberally educated while mom and dad focus on getting the best house on the block with his and hers BMWs. The child of theirs comes home with their liberal education. They're trying to talk to their parents. Their parents don't want to talk to them because they're exhausted from earning the money for the his and her BMWs. So what do? They make the child become silent by giving him his electronic device of the moment to get him in his room off of their back so he can be in his room. What does he do? He picks up one of the electronic devices, his cell phone. He's talking to his friend in school who's also liberally educated. It becomes a domino effect. COVID, I thought COVID was a catastrophe. It shut down a lot of things. I believe that was a controlled attempt to see how much they could control people. And man, they did an outstanding job, didn't they? They controlled a lot of people. They didn't control me at all. No vaccine, no booster, no mask. I went on with life as is. And I think I'm the only one that I know out of the group of people that my wife and I know that never got it. Although maybe I did get it. Maybe I was asymptomatic. I'm not sure. Who knows? But I'm a survivor. I know that my mom and dad were petrified about this because they were watching news and they were in their 80s and 90s. So they're petrified because their health is at a minimum. So they decided they need this to fend off any of this critical disease was going to kill them. I wasn't motivated to get it. James says no vaccines for me either. I don't even get the flu vaccine because there's so many strands of, I think there's hundreds of strands of the potential flu. What they do is they try to figure out the top 5 or top 6 that are predominant in any given year, and they put out a vaccine for that. My vaccine is my health regimen of physical fitness, trying to eat well, trying to just defend, have my body have the capabilities of defending itself. So all I got is Dave Darren signing off for the moment. I should end it like Gene Rayburn. Remember him from the Match Game?
Gene Rayburn here. Goodbye.
Goodbye.